All right. I am catgirl today, I guess. um, yeah. So, what about that? That is the question, right? Um, like the title is definitely a little bit enlightening, but there's more. There's more than that. Um, yeah. So queerbaiting is just one aspect of it, and as I'll explain throughout this, I have a bit more than just queerbaiting, as I discovered when doing research, as you should whenever you have questions about something. So yeah, sociology is cool, and it gives you a great framework to analyze stuff that you find interesting, which is why I applied it to VTubers, kinda. So yeah. um I'll be going over, since this is a preview, and honestly I haven't finished doing my research either. Um, this is just like I'm gonna go over like the background and like kind of where I started with all this. Then I'll define a couple things that are important when looking at this topic, and then I'll go over why the hell I thought this would be interesting to research. So yeah, hopefully this will be a fun and enlightening stream. um yeah, so the background. I initially was like gonna go at this from an angle of like, okay, queer baiting, blah 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 blah, very Western perspective, right? But turns out that actually there's more to it than that. There's way more to it than that. I found this really good book. I'll link it in the other stream when I actually like finish my research and do a big like proper stream about this. But I yeah, I went into it with one perspective, and I came out of it with a whole other perspective. Um so the first kind of thing that we need to tackle is idol culture, right? Because VTubers, well, the Japanese ones in particular, the Western VTubers and the ones that are kind of, you know, indie Western VTubers are a bit different. They're not really part of the same kind of idol culture in the same way. Like, for example, VShojo, definitely, they definitely play into more Western stuff than someone like Hololive, right? But I'll mainly be, looking at Hololive. Um, thanks. Yo is a good a good reaction to this, because this is really interesting to me, and hopefully other people find it interesting too. But yes, idol culture, right? So VTubers kind of derive from this idol culture in Japan, right? Like I read a book. It's very fun, and essentially it goes back to like this idea of, well, trying to divorce the performance from a performer to try and be able to reproduce it without having to have that pesky workers' rights thing happening. So that's pretty fun. And as I noted on my slides, idol culture and capitalism, that's an intersection that we are definitely going to be looking at. Um, it is interesting, yes. Um, so another key component though of idol culture that I read about, and I still have to delve more into how it really intersects with stuff like queer baiting and all that, because it does. Um, it's like there's this sort of trying to keep the idol pure thing, but also sexualizing them, and it's very interesting because it kind of, especially with Whole Life, I'm not going to. Okay, I'm not going to say that. Well, I'm not gonna say that everyone at Whole Life is actually just a bunch of straight women, because there is no straight explanation for some things, or at least like I'm looking at it from the perspective of them as performers, right? And the performance that they're engaging in, right? And so within idol culture itself, that idea of keeping the idol pure but also having them be the object of sexual desire kind of has to be very careful about how it does stuff, right? Like it um there's this sort of idea of like displacing the sexuality from the performer onto other objects, right? And it kind of ties into my next point, where within Western media, there's definitely a portrayal of so-called heteroflexible lesbians, right? So it's it's this idea of, well, lesbianism isn't a real sexuality. I mean, it is. I'm very gay, but it's this idea that it's like it's not as oh, what's it called? Like it's not as real as heterosexuality, and so I think it can kind of be a, what's it called? Like it can be a safe way to sexualize the idol while also keeping the idol pure, because, well, I anyone that's spent enough time around Yuri spaces on the internet will have seen the idea that, oh, Yuri is the purest form of love, and it's like, well, that's something to unpack. Hey, um, yeah, it's is lesbianism pure? Well, it can be, but that's not the only way that it can exist, right? Like there are as many different ways to be lesbian as there are lesbians, right? Like the whole like space of women who love women is very wide, and it's not just pure like, oh, they hold hands and stuff like that. It's like they do things as well, right? Like it's being gay is about, you love people that are of like the same gender as you, right? But also there's, well, okay, I guess the stereotype that it's all about the S word that happens in bedrooms sometimes elsewhere, but like that's a component of it. But just existing and caring about someone and loving someone is another part, and like maybe that could be pure, but yeah, it's definitely a real sexuality. So yeah, English speaking VTubers are what I'm really interested in, because by Japanese, Nihongo heta this. Yeah. I'm not good enough to just straight up watch the streams and analyze them like I am with English speaking streams. Like I can do my research while focusing specifically on this intersection of the Japanese and like kind of Western ideals, because, well, I'm not gonna do doxing because that's fucked, but based on accents and time zones, right? A decent chunk of Hololive EN are, in North America or Australia, a couple in Japan, but point is, right, they exist at this intersection of Japanese culture in that they're part of an idol company, well, virtual idol company, right, that's Japanese and definitely has Japanese values. However, they also have the Western culture that they exist within, especially American. And there's a lot of research on sexuality representations within Western media, right? And I think this is a way to like break into that, right? But as that's enough of the background, let's define some terms, because I've been rambling. Okay, so commodification is a key term here, right? It's I'm critiquing the capitalisms, right? Because in case you've been living under a rock or you've only seen my shorts, well, actually, if you've only seen my shorts, you would know this. I'm like a leftist, right? I'm not gonna be specific, but right, I'm gonna critique capitalism, like obviously, um, and commodification is one aspect of capitalism, and an especially, well, negative part of it, I believe. Um, so the TLDR, as per the slide, is that thing becomes product, right? And this can happen to pretty much anything, right? Like generally commodities, right? When you hear commodities, you think oil, iron ore, building materials, right? Like that kind of thing, right? But that's not the only thing that be a commodity, right? Like a commodity can be social interaction, right? Like that can be commodified in the case of like social media platforms, right? Like that is literally monetizing and turning that social interaction into a commodity and hence commodifying it, right? In the case of my research, the commodification applies to a few things. What example would be female bodies and female sexuality is commodified and becomes something to sell and trade. Um, Lesbianism is another one. Like, uh, in case anyone was wondering, gay people exist. Like we are a market to be marketed to, right? And if you can commodify our identities and put them into product, right, you can market to us. And that ties into the next point, right, of queer baiting, right? So if you're just stumbling upon this because you watch me, you probably would not have come across this term before. But if you've spent any time looking at leftist stuff or like sociological stuff, you would have come across this term. It's essentially this idea that a character or a person, even in a performance, would give off the idea that they might be gay, right? Or they might be queer in some way, and that's like obviously a way to like it's a way to bait people into watching it, right? And so it's like, yeah, it's queer baiting. One famous example in the anime space would be Hibike Euphonium, right? So you have Kumiko and Reina, who are so blatantly gay for each other, right? Like, holy shit. There is no straight explanation for those two. But actually, Kyoto Animation was like, these two are straight as a nail, and it's like, no, they're not Kyoani. They are not straight. But that's a famous example of that. Another example in Western media would be Supernatural, right? I doubt anyone has been on the internet for more than 5 minutes within like a certain period at the end of last year, right? And not come across the fucking Destiel drama, right? Where there was a pairing that people really were like cheering on, right? Like they thought, oh, these two are gay, right? And they have the most half-hearted like confession scene from one of the guys to the other guy, and then it's like, oh, he gets sent to super hell. The end. like that's this, like as I've seen this show referred to online, it's the most homophobic gay show ever, right? And that is like textbook queer baiting, right? It's like stringing people along thinking, oh, are they? And then it's like, nope, it ends in a barrio gays trope. Because reasons. It's especially egregious when, people do all the motions, but then they stop short of actually just outright saying it, right? Like, it would be like if I played Three Houses on stream, for example, and thirsted over all the girls in it and was like disgusted by the guys, right? Other than Claude. Claude's fine. And I guess Yuri. But, right, I thirst over them and all that, right? And people are like, oh, that's kind of gay. And you just kind of are like, right? Like, it's that's definitely a kind of baiting, right? Because you're not really, I don't know. It Sometimes it's good to just outright say things. Like in creative mediums, like show don't tell is pretty good, but sometimes in terms of like representation, for example, you kind of do have to tell. Otherwise, you're going to end up with baiting. Also, hello. Yeah. Um, I don't know how far into my stuff I am, but yeah. um, so, like, yeah, sometimes you just have to say things to not be accused of baiting, and that's okay. And if you don't want to say those things, then, like, sure, some people may not want to, be openly out, right? Like, being out is scary, right? Like, example from me, I literally got called a slur yesterday by making a video where my voice sounds like, how it does, and saying that I'm gay while with, anime girl. So, being out is not for everyone. But just having that representation of someone being out can help shift the window, shift the idea of what's okay, right? And being a good role model for other people like you, right, is also important. And yeah, I have more thoughts on this, specifically within VTuber culture, but that'll be the next video, because I don't my thoughts on that are not fully formed and like backed by theory. So move on to the next key to understanding this stuff: parasocial relationships. Yeah, I think that kind of speaks for itself, but I'm going to explain anyway because I want this stream to kind of work as a video for people that want to watch the next one, to kind of get a refresher and understand what I'm on about without having to go into these basic things. So yeah, it's a key part of this thing, and especially with idol culture, that's another component where these like VTubers kind of take on that lineage of the idol of the 70s, 80s, 90s, right? So in the West, the main like flashpoint of discussing parasocial relationships is YouTube, right? Where I'm a performance, right? Like, maybe some of the people watching do actually know me in real life, right? But not everyone that's watching knows me. They know Hopla Popla, that cat girl or eagle, whatever, on the internet, right? But some people know me as Riley, right? As me that exists. And there's a kind of disconnect, right? There's that parasocial where it's like kind of social, but there's a big imbalance where I can portray myself how I want to portray myself, and people see that. They don't see me behind the mask, right? They don't see me as the real person behind it, because I don't do that, right? And the people that are commenting, right, that don't know me, think that they get the feeling that they know me because they watch my content and they get my, random 3 a.m. thoughts, because that's what my shorts are, right? Usually I'm like, oh shit, it's 3 a.m. I haven't fulfilled my make content at least once a day thing. And I upload a short where I'm just, talking about something that matters to me. or that I think needs to be talked about. And that's all you get, right? So there's that imbalance where I can't know my viewers. Again, other than the ones that I literally know outside of content creation, right? My actual friends, right? But I don't know my viewers outside of that. And so this parasocial relationship, though, is very, very tricky because the whole idea and what idols kind of play into is that, oh, you want to know me, right? You want the raw background stuff, right? Need some water. I'm talking for like 20 minutes straight. All right. So that, yeah. Within Japanese idol culture, that's definitely a thing of, and I guess in Western celebrity culture as well, of trying to get access to this raw, unfiltered, like person behind the act, right? And trying to think that, oh, they're your friend. And especially another component of that is idols as replaceable, idols as unrefined. Good A. Um, yeah. So like idols as an unrefined talent, right? That can grow with the audience, and so the audience is invested in this parasocial relationship to the idol, where the hopes and aspirations of the idol are kind of part of the hopes and aspirations of the audience, of the idol fan, right? And so there's a lot at play there, and I definitely think it's something interesting. Now, why did I decide to go into all this? Well, I say this is gonna be a long one, but like, it probably won't be. I've semi covered some of this, but first one is that, well, yeah, hi, I'm gay, and I do like seeing other gay people, other queer people succeeding, right? I like to see representation. It makes me happy to be like, okay, hey, this person succeeded in spite of, society being a fuck, right? And it's like, it helps motivate me to keep going, keep trying, right? And I especially do not like being baited, right? Like, fucking Hibike euphonium makes me so sad because it could have been cool. Like, these two young women that are like into music and motivate each other and have that love for each other, and it's like, nope, okay, we're going to have a weird plot with the teacher, right? Like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, so I cherish like the two scenes that are like so damn gay you cannot explain them away as like, oh, they have lots of respect for each other. It's like, do you tell someone that it's kind of hot that they're into pain because you respect them? Like, yeah. But yeah, baiting is not cool at all, and it feels like my identity, that is like part of me, is just being used as marketing, being used as a commodity, right? And I don't like that, and I think it's a negative thing because, like, sure, it makes it, I guess, normalized in a way, but it's not really normalizing in a good way, right? Because as I've read up, I hit the books, and, well, books, I mean, I went on Google Scholar and opened up a bunch of tabs on like Sage and ProQuest and all that. But like, there's definitely a problem where there's one-tone representations of female sexuality, especially queer female sexuality, that are harmful to young queer people, and young queer women in particular, since that is, my specific area. Yes, thanks. I do be wearing a nice outfit. Yes, great spelling. Almost as good as my spelling if I didn't use the autocorrect on these slides. But you don't get to see the pre-autocorrect typing. Alright. So, the next component as to why I'm super interested in this is that, well, I'm literally doing a degree that's like a component of it is literally sociology, right? Like this is my jam, right? And in particular queer theory, right? Like that is delicious. I mean it's relevant to me in particular, but also like I think it's interesting to unpack stuff and look at it and how it works more broadly. And yeah, I I wanted to apply it to something else that I enjoy, that being VTubers and VTuber culture, right? So, as I've noted on this slide, thank you, Past Riley, I have to pay money, right, for my uncompleted degree. Everyone else gets to just click the link to my channel, click the sub button, and ring the bell. Yes, I did say delicious. Queer theory is I enjoy reading it. I don't know. um Consuming knowledge. That's the delicious aspect. But hold on, I gotta get my sub to me plug in. So, as I was saying, I have to pay for my degree. However, everyone else watching can just sub and hit the bell, and they get free, 100% free. Just gotta sub and hit the bell to get random sociological analyses. And I guess if you tweet at me with something interesting, I might, delve into it as well. But it's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. Yeah. But yeah, the next point I have on my slide is that I think Japan is kind of cool, but it has flaws. Every place has flaws, and yes, what the fuck? Japan isn't perfect. Yeah, it's not perfect. It ties into the next point, but there's a lot that's hell yeah. Um, so there's like a lot of stuff. Like Japanese culture is very broad, and there's definitely some issues that have happened, and like I've learnt about that. I'm also studying Japanese studies. That's another component of my degree, right? Um, as I just mentioned, you get just sub and you get these analyses for free. Um, but like yeah, that's the thing, right? Like there's definitely a history there, and stuff doesn't just spring into existence from nowhere. And being informed and like looking at it from like this social lens, right, is kind of important to understand what's going on, right, or at least get one good perspective on it. And part of what's wrong in Japan is capitalism. Like that, other than capitalism, there were obviously things wrong with Japan prior to losing World War II, after going just a teensy bit fash. But the capitalism kind of has done bad things too, right? Like it definitely feeds into that work culture, right? And I can see echoes of that work culture within VTuber stuff, right? It's that there's a lot, right? And even outside of the work culture stuff, there's commodification of women in various ways, right? Like idol culture itself is, yeah, like it. I here's a little tidbit for the next stream. VTubers kind of derive themselves directly from what the idol space was doing in the 90s and 2000s, because, well, people like AKB48, they were creating artificial people, virtual idols, right? Like they were experimenting with that already. It just took, you know, some people with some mocap gear to create, Kizuna Ai after seeing shit like Hatsune Miku, right? Hey, capitalism vomit emoji. That's what I love to see in my chat. Um, but yeah, like that's the thing, right? Um, they the four heavenly kings or whatever they're called of VTubing. You can kind of trace that idea, right, back to um back to virtual idols that big idol agencies were experimenting with, right? So yeah, there's a lot to unpack, which is why I'm doing this preview stream instead of, you know, the full actual analysis of VTubers and these intersections that I've kind of identified, because yeah, in 1 week was not enough to really unpack this, and I still have more work to do. But here's my clickbait. It's not in the thumbnail because I'm above that. But yeah, like these are kind of three, I guess, relationships you could call them, that I'm particularly, basing a lot of this on, right? Based on clips that I've seen and stuff that I've watched. And if you can name all of these 6 VTubers, you're pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but so that's the thing, right? I don't know the person behind any of these 6, right? And I never will. I mean, unless, I join Whole Life. Which, I mean, that would be cool, but also there's no way they'd like pick me after I make a video basically calling them out as queer baiting, I just doubt that. But this isn't from a place of like, oh, why are they successful and I'm not. This is from a place of like, how do I say this? I like their stuff. The community, I could take it or leave it, but the actual yes, I'm Angura. So that's the thing, right? Like this is coming from a place of me like enjoying the content and really appreciating the hard work, especially Callie. Like, holy shit. Like, she is such goals, honestly. Yeah. So I'm not doing this from a place of hatred or a place of like bitter cynicism. Yes. Okay. Ava's like another one of my favorites. All right, if we're just talking about whole life, yeah, my 3 faves are probably Callie, Kiara, and Ame, because they all have like stuff that I aspire to, right? Like Callie is hardworking as fuck and makes music that's pretty cool, and has a kind of humor that's like very sarcastic and dry, and I like that. And there's Kiara, who's like doesn't let shit get her down and just keeps soldiering on, and also speaks like 3 or 4 languages, right? Like that's pretty based. And then Ahmed just has like, she's good at the streaming stuff, right? I like that, and I aspire to also be good at the streaming stuff. And yes, Callie, oh whoa, indeed. Yeah. So I think this works as an adequate teaser for what I have next. Callie is definitely a legend. Yeah. Funnily enough, my according to my Spotify Wrapped 2021, 2 of my top 5 were just Callie and other Callie that we don't talk about. So, yeah. Ooh. But yeah, I'll definitely be doing another stream on this topic, but actually like going into and analyzing and looking at clips and stuff and really delving into it. But this is just kind of an explainer, and I think I've done enough explaining. So yeah, if people have questions that they'd love me to answer right now at this moment, just put them in the chat, and I'll give you all like a minute or something. That seems fair, right? It's like you can ask me like, really come into my chat with that name, huh? Bye. Yeah, so anyway, you can ask me questions about what I'll be covering next stream on this topic, or questions about idol culture if I've covered it in my reading so far. Ooh, that is a good question. That is a very good question. Thank you. Okay. So I definitely think that there are some elements of that. Alright, I'll get to the pixel art question after this. But I think pixel art is cool. So that dimension of fetishization of Asian women, yes, definitely. That like is like almost certainly part of it, right? Like the whole anime aesthetic, right, is that like, okay. Case anyone didn't realize, I'm white, right? But like anime characters, since anime tends to be made in Japan by Japanese people for Japanese people and some outside audience, they tend to be Japanese despite what they look like, right? And I think that's definitely part of that fetishizing of Asian women, because it's like, oh, the VTuber is like belongs to us, right? And that kind of ties into the parasocial relationship aspect and draws back into idol culture, where the whole idea is that people are meant to like take ownership of the idol, right? They're meant to really dedicate themselves to the idol because it makes the idol company money, right? And yeah, the Western fascination obviously is part of that, right? So I think I should address my use of this aesthetic, right? Yeah, like personally, I'm fascinated by it because it provides a way for me to, look good while also not, putting my own face out there. Like, I mean, sure, I'm probably attractive in real life too, but I don't want to be, like, I'm okay with being openly queer on the internet, but I don't want to be visibly queer on the internet, if that makes sense, right? Like, I guess I get enough stares in public having a quite feminine build with bright green hair, because surprise surprise, I actually do kind of look like my avatar in real life. I don't have the face tattoos or purple eyes, but other than that, like, I do literally have green hair that's kind of short and tiny boobs. So anyway, hopefully that was a satisfying answer to that question, Bento. Now pixel art. Pixel art. Hold on, I think I still have the tab open. Yes, here we go. Someone else shared this with me, and I think it's really fucking cool. Thanks. So yeah, this, like that's a pixel art, like live 2D avatar. So I think that's really fucking cool. And that's my thoughts on pixel art. I think it's cool. Um, ooh, I should mention Celeste. Good game, pixel art game. Also, banger soundtrack by a banger woman. Lena Rain is just based as fuck, honestly. Um, yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Right? Like, it's such a cool like avatar. Oh, wow. Okay. Thanks YouTube. My overlay had the message faster than my actual chat did. But yes, hello. Um, I am wrapping up the stream now, though, unfortunately. But nice to see other people popping in as well. Um, that's okay. PNG tubers are cool as well. It's like definitely a like honestly, if you're putting yourself out there and you're creating content, I respect that. I mean, if you're putting out content that's respectful, right? Like I don't respect right wingers that put misinformation on the internet and harass people. But if you're just in your own little corner making stuff because you like it, that's mad respect to you. Just 100%. Yeah. All right. I think I feel like there probably aren't any more questions at this point. Um, so I might wrap up this stream here. Um, it's likely that I'll just do a gaming stream next because I kind of want a break from, just doing the sociology, right? But definitely do watch out for my more deeper dive into this stuff because I think it'll be very interesting and I think people will definitely enjoy it. Especially since I'll be clickbaiting with HoloLive and all that. Um, but no, like again, I do respect the hardworking people that do all this stuff. I'm just analyzing it. Play Isaac. I totally could play Isaac. I've been into it for the past little while, so. All right. Well, I did put it on my Twitter poll, but the people that voted wanted this stream, so. But yeah, Isaac. I'll put a waiting room up, maybe tomorrow. I'll tweet about it, so check it out up there. Hopla underscore. And yeah, subscribe if you think this was cool. Totally cool if you don't subscribe either. And I will see you next time. Thanks for coming and bye bye.